All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Texas. Sorry about that. I don't know why that happened in the middle of me talking. My name is Jax James. I'm the executive director for Texas Normal. This is our December virtual meeting. We are going to be talking about things legislative and preparing for the upcoming legislative session here in Texas. For those of you that follow the legislature and politics, you know that just 10 days after the recent election, pre-filing of bills began. And in Texas, the legislature only meets every 2 years for 140 days, unless, of course, a special session is called, which is really difficult to say. The official session will begin in January on the 10th, January 10th, 2023, and runs through the end of May. There have been quite a few bills that have been pre-filed so far, and so I want to go over some of them. I do want to point out that in the description of this video today and in the comments, we're going to be leaving links for you guys. And the first one is going to be a really important one to bookmark. It is our 88th Ledge page, and it's at texasnormal.org. Just click that 88th Ledge tab right there, bookmark that. That's where you're going to find current action alerts and information on the bills that have been filed. So let's start with medical cannabis bills. So far, 2 have been filed, and we do expect that there will be several more. The first one is from Senator Jose Menendez, SB 121. Senator Menendez has long been an advocate for medical cannabis, leading the way in crafting legislation in the Senate. Is also a big advocate for veterans in our state. And so some of the highlights of this bill, because, just so y'all know, these bills are, sometimes 40, 100 pages long. And so I kind of want to go over some of the high level points of these bills. But SB 121 would approach qualifying patients more as a let doctors decide type of program. So doctors would be able to decide on who should qualify to be a patient if they could benefit from the use of cannabis and what their dosing regimen should be. Additionally, it offers medical cannabis protections for patients and caregivers. It creates a medical cannabis research advisory board. It outlines the requirements that would go into getting these cannabis research licenses and gives directions on adding new licenses and how many to add, as well as testing and labeling requirements. The second bill that has been filed having to do with medical cannabis is SB 127 by Senator Carol Alvarado. And this is, again, a let doctors decide type program where doctors would decide who could qualify and what their dosing would be. And this one also would additionally protect medical patients' parental rights specifically. There have been several penalty reduction bills that have been filed. The first one is from HB 127 from Representative Canales in the House, and it has a companion bill, SB 87 by Nathan Johnson in the Senate. And this kind of takes penalties for concentrates and reduces them from the blanket first-degree state jail felony and up to a lowering scale dependent on amount, moving mostly to criminal misdemeanors and away from the state jail felonies, but definitely scaling all that down, so reducing penalties. Of course, there's like 17 different classifications of weight, and each of those, I didn't want to necessarily go over, but you can look at the bill and it does outline each of those weight amounts and how it would lower the penalty for those. One of the star bills so far that have been filed as far as penalty reduction goes is from longtime advocate and champion in Texas, Representative Joe Moody, and it's HB 218. This one would lower possession of 1 ounce or less of cannabis flower or cannabis concentrates to a Class C misdemeanor. An officer may not make an arrest for less than 1 ounce or for paraphernalia, and it also allows for expungement. So it addresses 3 really important aspects of reducing penalties and decriminalization. Then we have HB 382 from Representative Nicole Collier. And this basically would offer a defense to prosecution if someone believes they're in possession of legal hemp products. So let's say you have a legal hemp product and they decide that they don't believe you or that it tests hot or something like that. If you bona fide did believe that you were in possession of a legal hemp product, it gives you a defense to that prosecution. Representative Symphonia Thompson, Miss T, authored HB 388, and it would lower possession of 2 ounces or less from a Class B to a Class C misdemeanor, and it strikes certain enhancements, like you can have an enhancement if you're next to a school or if you have paraphernalia with you, so it strikes some different enhancements like that. HB 520 by Representative Jean Wu would remove and reduce penalties having to do with multiple possession levels of cannabis flower. And then SB 208 by Senator Sarah Eckhart dictates that a peace officer cannot arrest an offender for possession or delivery of marijuana under 2 ounces unless they have a warrant, even if it was literally like in their view, even if they were watching you do it. And an officer charging a person with possession or delivery of marijuana for 2 ounces or less must have issued a citation rather than an arrest. It also reduces penalties to multiple delivery and possession levels of cannabis flower. There is a legalization bill that has also been filed, again by Senator Eckhart, and it's SB 209, and it would allow adults to possess 2.5 ounces of flower or 15 grams of concentrate. It would allow for the cultivation of up to 12 plants, and it would also dictate that adults can use, possess, process, transport, and transfer with another adult without any remuneration. Sorry, that is always a tongue twister of a word for me. And then it also says that authorized conduct, basically, this is now authorized, cannot be grounds for denying or restricting conservatorship, possession of, or access to a child. So some parental protections included in that language there. There are 2 kind of miscellaneous bills that I wanted to draw attention to. HB 513 by Representative Metcalf would actually create an enhancement of an offense of providing marijuana to a child, or if the delivery of a controlled substance that includes marijuana caused the death or serious bodily injury of the person. So that's actually an enhancement in penalty. Then a bill that I think especially people who follow the hemp industry and hemp products will be interested in is SB 264 by Senator Charles Perry. It makes it where people cannot sell, make, or purchase hemp products with more than the Delta 9 THC concentrate of more than 0.3% by dry weight, but any synthetically derived THC and any THC content that exceeds federal limits. So the synthetically derived THC is the important part. Many people are under the assumption that Delta 8 products are directly extracted from the cannabis plant, but Delta 8 actually is a very small amount actually in the plant itself. So what people normally do in the manufacturing process is they take high CBD hemp flower, they put it through an isomerization process, and that converts the cannabidiol to the Delta 8 THC, and then they're able to use that distilled synthesized THC and add it to the products. So this would actually impact Delta 8. It also addresses some regulatory issues. Some people might call it a cleanup bill, but if you're in the hemp industry, I definitely encourage you to take a look and see what those tweaks are. And then there's joint resolution. One has been filed. So just so you know, in Texas, we are a state that does not allow for ballot initiative at the state level. Our marijuana laws are dictated at the state level, but we don't have a way to collect signatures and petition to get something on the ballot statewide. In order to get something on the ballot, you actually have to have a legislator put forth legislation for you. And then if it passed both the chambers and is allowed by the governor, then it's put on the ballot, then you can vote on it, and then it comes back to the legislature for them to create regulatory structures and laws around. So it is a very long game way of doing it, but it is definitely of note to say that joint resolution has been authored, SJR 22 by Senator Sarah Eckhart, and it would amend the Constitution so that, or basically it would submit to the voters a ballot initiative that reads, the constitutional amendment directs the legislature to authorize and regulate the possession, cultivation, and sale of cannabis, and it would be on the November 4th, 2024 election. So definitely some items of interest there. Now, before I come over to the chat and look at any questions that you guys might have, I did want to let you know, as I mentioned previously, the first day of session is going to be on January 10th. And as you may recall, every session we like to do an advocacy workshop. And so with our coalition partners on January 21st, there is going to be a virtual and free Texas Marijuana Advocacy Workshop where we will help you prepare for the session, give education on the bills that have been filed, on the different policies that are going to be discussed, how to engage with legislators, all to get you ready for the big lobby day in March. We'll be having more information on the March lobby day coming soon, but I do encourage you to use the link in the description of this stream today or in the comments to sign up and register for the free Texas Marijuana Advocacy Workshop on January 21st. Also, a reminder to bookmark our 88th Ledge page. Go to texasnormal.org, click that 88th Ledge tab right there, bookmark it, because you'll find all of the action alerts for medical cannabis, penalty reduction, and legalization there. And then I also want to let you guys know that as you may recall in sessions past, we've done what we call direct actions, where on a biweekly or weekly basis, we go up to the legislature and we hand out one-pagers to the offices. We do plan to start those up again in January. And so we should have more information on how you can participate and engage with that there. So I'm going to come over here and see if we have any questions. Okay, I see a couple here. Let's see. Are there any whole plant bills? So there are legalization bills that will allow for someone to cultivate at home, home grow, whole plant bills. Now, if you're talking about medical cannabis, there are bills that will lift the THC cap and redefine it, removing the low THC. And then there's also letting doctors decide. And so that would allow them to decide what kind of dosing regimen that you would need. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see if we have any other ones. I know a lot of people are interested in the expungement process, and so I did want to point out that there is the expungement feature in HB 218 from Representative Joe Moody. So Joe Moody's bill would address penalty reduction for cannabis flower and concentrates and allow for expungement. So definitely look forward to seeing Representative Moody champion that bill again this year. All right. Can DPS see if someone is a patient? So I'm going to answer this to the best of my knowledge with the caveat that sometimes these systems are updated and I may not be correct, but my understanding was that the original reason that DPS was the overseeing regulatory agency was because at the time certain prescription drugs had to go through DPS to log how much you should have, like you give your license to get certain types of prescription drugs, et cetera, and they maybe track how much Sudafed you buy or something like that. So they were in charge of that. That has now become a federal program, but at the time that was why DPS was in charge. As you also know, in Texas, patients, we don't have like a an explicit card that we can carry with us. It's all digital. And so my understanding is that DPS can look up and see if you're a registered patient and if you are able to have that medication with you. However, there can be glitches in the system, et cetera. And so what I've been advised by people is to make sure that your medication is always in its container, and that your container with your information and your details on there, it kind of acts as your medical card, and that sometimes your doctor will take a screen grab of your registration in the patient system, Kurt, and you can print that and carry that with you as well. So I hope that was helpful. Let's see. Can DPS officers in the field see if someone is a patient? Okay, I feel like I just answered that. Let me come over. There's a Q&A section over here. Let me come over here because I think we're live streaming, and also we addressed Delta 8, but what about Delta 9? Will it have to be only naturally occurring Delta, or will converted Delta 9 be allowed? So it specifically says no synthetic THC. And when you convert it, they are calling that a synthesate. Oh man, I can't even say it. That makes it synthesized. And therefore, naturally occurring Delta 9 would be allowed, but synthesized would not be allowed. Same as with Delta 8. But of course, as we know, Delta 8 is in such a small quantity in the plant that you're not really able to extract it at the rates that people use it. Okay, I think that I have answered everything here today. Just to remind everyone, the legislative session starts on January 10th. On January 21st, we will be hosting a Texas marijuana advocacy workshop. You can register for free and participate to prepare for the upcoming session, which will run from January 10th through the end of May. Now, this is our shot every 2 years, so we need to all make sure that we're prepared and on the same page, and definitely stay tuned for information about direct actions and our upcoming lobby day in March. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and if you have any questions, definitely make sure that you reach out to us through our website, bookmark our 88th Ledge page, and there are 3 different action alerts that you can currently participate in there. The action alerts having to do with penalty reduction, legalization, and medical marijuana. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today, and have an awesome rest of your evening. Oh, wait, before you go, I forgot. So starting next month, instead of having our meetings at 8 p.m., we will be hosting them at 7 p.m. So join us on the first Wednesday of 2023 at our new time, 7 p.m. So on that note, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your evening. Take care.